let's say I call my mom on the phone, and it's like it's always, she doesn't listen, she doesn't ask, how are you? She just talks and talks for an hour or two, let's say, right? So this is the usual stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling seen, I'm not feeling heard, I don't feel there's any interest. And then something inside me opens up and it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And what our brain often does, it doesn't only go to painful, it often also goes to, right? I get angry and I get like, wow, I could go on a rant, how terrible she is, let's say. And I would like tell my friends about all the reasons why she's so terrible. And then the focus is more on her. But the trap is I can't change her, right?
Hi, Imke. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you because you are actually one of my mentors, and I'm very pleased to have the ability to speak to you today. Dr. Imke Hermann is a clinical psychologist and the co-director of the German Institute of Emotion-Focused Therapists. She did her doctorate with Leslie Greenberg, who's actually the founder of Emotion-Focused Therapists, and is a trainer and supervisor for emotion-focused therapy and cognitive behavior therapy. Imke has 2 children and parents, and therefore qualifies for talking about emotional parents. Thank you for being my guest today, Imke.
Ghazaleh, thank you very much for having me.
Imke, emotionally immature parents are often characterized by self-centeredness, emotional reactivity, lack of emotional awareness, being neglectful, and being emotionally absent, which leads to unreliable emotional support for their children. Adult children of these parents often face challenges in forming healthy relationships, struggle with feelings of shame, loneliness, feeling like a burden, and so much more. In EFT, we have a specific intervention designed to help people to find peace in the relationship with their parents by accepting them for who they are. What are the major steps someone actually has to go through in order to be able to accept their emotionally immature parents?
Right, Ghazaleh, thank you for the question. Okay, I'm going to try and translate a little, right? Translate this language a little bit and simplify it into emotional language, to make it easier for the listeners to just follow and maybe like feel into what this would be like for myself, right? So if we talk about emotionally immature parents, the focus is more on the parent. Like what did they do? What did they not do? Of what did I have too much and of what did I have too little? All those things, right? But when we work emotionally, it's really about our pain, right? Whatever with the parents, it's really our pain that influences our lives. It's my pain that makes my life hard. It's my issues that make my life complicated and painful and sad sometimes. So I think it's easier to put the focus on myself. So where's my pain? And you mentioned, right, many of us, we grow up with what you might want to call emotionally immature parents, parents who do stuff that's simply not good for us, or people, or as parents who are simply not there enough, do not fulfill my needs for closeness, for appreciation, for safety, for whatever it is, enough, right? So there's always something lacking. Or I'm being frightened by my parents, I'm being put down by my parents for whatever reasons, but that's what they do. And it leaves me in pain. And it leaves me in pain as a child. And this pain, our brain has a tendency, right, to build these networks. And I'm sure you've mentioned all this before, right? So we're much more prone in the future for the rest of our lives to be triggerable in specific points by everyone in many different situations, and then we are thrown back into this pain, or other very unpleasant feelings arise and we don't know how to deal with them, and then we form all kinds of coping mechanisms to deal with them. But also, as you said, usually our parents, when they're immature, they often don't, mature from one week to the next. So often we have to deal with just the same stuff today, right, as adults that we had to deal with as kids.
So when I then accept my pain, so first of all, I think what you're trying to say is that we need to know what my pain is.
Yes.
We all have different kind of, I like to call it also sensitivities, right? In that pain. So first I need to figure out what's my pain. How do I do that?
What's my pain? So you can figure that out in many different moments in your life. But maybe as we're talking about parents, and let's say your parents are still alive, or sometimes it's just you have to think about your parents, typical situations, and then you usually meet that pain. You meet those feelings, let's call them unpleasant feelings, difficult feelings, vulnerable feelings that you've had to deal with all your life. And then let's say I call my mom on the phone, and it's like it's always, she doesn't listen, she doesn't ask, how are you? She just talks and talks for an hour or two, let's say, right? So this is the usual stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling seen, I'm not feeling heard, I don't feel there's any interest. And then something inside me opens up and it's painful. And what our brain often does, it doesn't only go to painful, it often also goes to, right? I get angry. And I get like, wow, I could go on a rant, how terrible she is, let's say. And I would like tell my friends about all the reasons why she's so terrible. And then the focus is more on her. But the trap is I can't change her, right? So it's much better to refocus on my pain, as you said, to just become aware. It doesn't even have to be in that phone call. Often we just have to think of difficult situations, go back to them. And then we have an opportunity usually to get back in touch with what is difficult and vulnerable within us.
So let's say I know what my pain is, such as I don't feel seen, maybe I feel lonely, or I feel constantly not good enough for my parents, and I kind of feel I have this critical mother on the phone telling me what I should do, never really listening to what I need, right? And what do I do next with it?
What do I do next? That's a good question, right? Like, first of all, let's say you've just had this conversation and it's a great opportunity because the same thing happened again and again. So usually what our brain does, it goes into anger or it goes into resignation. Nothing's ever going to change. But I want to invite you to see this as an opportunity. Okay, it just happened. So the stuff that's difficult is alive now. So I can get in touch, let's say, with I'm never the daughter that I should be. Like, let's say I have a critical mom or a critical dad, and it always comments, your sister's doing this and that. Why have you actually never, like, why did you drop out of uni? Why did you do this? Or why did you do that, right? And the old painful feeling of not being the one that I should be opens up. So the first and most important thing is to pay attention to it and to sit with it. To not push it away immediately, even if it's just, let's say, half a minute that I take with myself with that pain. It's a good beginning, even if it's just 10 seconds that I don't go in a rant on my parents or that I don't distract myself, but I just sit with it and sit with the pain for a moment, as if I was sitting next to it and look at it and appreciate that it's there, just to be aware of it. I think that's the beginning of it all.
Yeah. Okay, and now I'm sitting in it, acknowledging it, right? Acknowledging this is hurting, this is painful, I'm next to my pain, right?
Right, yeah. What next? What do I do next, right? So different scenarios. I mean, one of the things is that we know from therapy and that we know from psychotherapy research is we do this intervention where we actually bring in the scene. Like you might have just talked to your mom on the phone and it's there. But if you're in therapy, we bring in the scene by bringing your mom and actually letting her do what she always does. It's just like the trigger. And then exactly what happens, like you sit by yourself after the phone call on your couch, is the same feeling you'd be having in therapy. And we found that you firstly, like I said, get in touch with it and just be with it for a moment and don't distract and don't avoid, be with it. You get a chance to re-experience a little bit of the pain that you've always had. So my recommendation, that's what we do in therapy, what I always also recommend for when you're alone or with a loved one at home and it's just happened to you, go back to earlier memories. Go back to when you were a child, because usually it goes back, it goes way back often, right? Like a long time. And your memory might bring images, might bring memories and bring them alive. Go back to that pain and look at this little child that you were. What we do in therapy is we bring back, let's say we bring in the mom and then you get in touch with the pain. And what we found is when you get back in touch with the pain and you re-experience a little bit more of how terrible it really was, and there's somebody there with you who can share that and validate you in this pain and sees you and helps you to regulate it, hold it, you come to more self-acceptance. Automatically, you come to more self-compassion. There's more like, oh, it was really so painful. And I almost forgot how painful it was. And no wonder it was so difficult. No wonder, oh God, this is what I had to survive. And it really leads me to more self-acceptance. And it's the same when you're by yourself. You can imagine yourself in that situation, this little kid that you were, this little boy or this little girl in a situation where the mom was always criticizing. It was never good enough. And I brought home a good mark. I was proud, and it wasn't good enough because my neighbor had the better mark, let's say. Or I come home to an unsafe place. There's screaming and shouting, and there's physical violence. So bring back this little kid and maybe sit it next to you, sit it in front of you, and see what you feel in the face of this little child.
Yeah, and what you missed, right? I mean,
exactly.
That causes that pain. So you needed something that you didn't get. You missed something that was not there for you.
Absolutely.
You
So
say through the pain, we get also in touch what we missed and what
yes,
we needed.
yes,
And then we can also kind of grieve about that.
absolutely, right? When we go back to the pain, in the pain, we feel what was most missing. It could be like an appreciating parent, somebody who says, I love you, I'm proud of you. It could be that what was most missing is safety.
Yeah.
Simply a safe place, a mom that wouldn't beat me, a dad that wouldn't shout at me. It could be that the thing that was missing was just somebody there or anyone interested. You know, it's very, very idiosyncratic and it's very different. So when you're in touch with that pain, it will also tell you what was lacking and what you needed most in those moments.
So let's say I know what I missed, I know what I needed, I sit with the pain, I find self-compassion, I grieve, and then my mother calls me next time and I'm on the phone and she does exactly the same thing. She compares me to my sister, tells me what I should do, makes me feel like it was not good enough what I did. What am I going to do now?
What are you going to do? So one thing is, when we work with these very vulnerable moments in therapy, we almost try to create a safe space in the therapy room, but also over time while we are reopening the wounds and while we're working with them. So while I'm still in the process of healing those wounds, it's enormously important to protect yourself and to really take care of yourself as if you were taking care of you as a kid, to take care of your vulnerable parts. So if you're just in a process with yourself or in therapy and you come into danger of being confronted with the old behavior, the old pain, try and not be confronted with it. Like you actually need to protect yourself in those moments. So it might be a time when you're not so easily reached on the phone. Maybe you don't pick up. Maybe you have to assert yourself that you don't have time or you don't want to come to this and that, I don't know, family reunion or whatever it is. There's usually a time period when I'm still open, my wound is still open, I'm working through it, that I need more protection than usual. This might not be the case afterwards. Once I've worked through, it might still change. But when I still feel vulnerable, like the moment you mentioned here, I'm still vulnerable. I'm still in touch with my pain. I can know now what I feel and what I would have needed. I'm still sad and I'm grieving and I'm starting to develop some self-compassion. But I'm still open. It might not be the best time to have the same shit dumped all over me again. So it'll be necessary to protect yourself against it.
Yeah. So know your boundaries, right?
Yes, exactly.
That wound inside of you while you're going through this transformation phase, right?
Yes, yes.
Pain, healing. But let's say I've done therapy, I worked with the wound, it's not that open, it's kind of healing, because I'm really taking good care of myself. But then I still have the parents that don't change, right?
Yes.
And I want them in my life because
Yes.
they're my parents. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes we decide to go no contact because we really don't have any other option, right? And I find that so brave when people come to that decision that no contact is the best protection for them. But sometimes we want to have the contact and we want to have the relationship. How am I going to cope with this now?
Okay, that's a good question. Let's say the situation you just described, I've worked through it. And maybe like while you're working through it, I have, like you said, we have a definite advice, right? Protection and boundaries are super, super important. But it's a little bit different once you've worked through. We've found that once you've worked through and you found compassion with yourself, you have found the anger against the parents for what you didn't get or for what you did get, you have come to more self-acceptance. You are fine with your vulnerability. You are more aware of what you need and what you don't need. You come to a point where you know what you want to do. Like there's not one solution. And I'm often surprised, and you probably share this experience, Ghazaleh, that when people come to us with their stories and their pain, then sometimes it pops up an image in our head what they might be doing later or should be doing later. And often we are surprised about the solutions people find for themselves. Because working through that and finding your own self-worth and feeling like you deserve differently by working through the pain and by developing self-compassion and accepting yourself more, you come to a point where you feel much more easily what you need and what you want. And then you often find your self-assertion and you're more aware of, oh no, there's a boundary being crossed. I don't want that. You often found the power in yourself to end conversations, to not go to places, to avoid things. And almost equally as often, we also find that many people, they're simply not as bothered anymore.
Yeah.
It's like interesting, but it's just like my mom does the same thing. And it's like, whatever. She does that. That's who she is.
So you find also more acceptance for your parents when you actually find self-acceptance and for your vulnerability and find that compassion, find that anger, healthy anger, find that grief, as if like it transforms into more acceptance automatically, right? Because I'm not in this inner fight with myself, right?
Exactly, Ghazaleh, exactly.
Knowledge, this is painful, and I really needed that. Instead of belittling it, instead of making it feel like it was not important or whatever that people do, right? But more like when I can accept that, then automatically something switches inside of ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
This is beautiful because I love the way you said that, that in that being in that vulnerability and finding that compassion, we find also what we need and what we need to do, right? So are you saying that this is the most important process we have to go through in order to actually figure out what we really need to do and what kind of a relationship we really want to have?
I think so, yes. I think we have the way through the pain that leads us to more self-acceptance and self-love and more, like, gives us access to those feelings that are there, that are our healthy resources. They've been there all the time, but because usually they've been buried. If we are mistreated as kids, we do have anger, but we basically unlearn it, or it's just like, it's dangerous. So we forget about it and our brain doesn't go that way. So it goes into other more painful emotions. But through working through these things, we regain access to the healthy stuff. And it helps us find the boundaries. It helps us feel deserving and feel stronger or more accepting of our vulnerabilities. Because to elaborate on what you just said about accepting the parents, you mentioned that we do all kinds of things when we are still hurting. And there's one thing that we found that's very typical. Like if I'm a little kid and my needs aren't fulfilled, let's say I'm not interesting to my parents, they don't pay attention, they abandon me, they neglect me, or they put me down all the time, or it's dangerous, I'm being hit, or whatever happens, right? What kids always do, they feel the pain and then they always feel it's because of me. There's always a feeling of this is because of me. There's something wrong with me. There's something not good enough. There's something too needy about me. So that's almost always the case. And evolutionary speaking, it does make sense, right? If the fault is with you, you can still try and fix it. If the fault is with my parent, nothing I can do. So kids feel always it's about me and they try to adapt. So now when I'm grown up and like you said, I'm an adult and an adult child of an immature parent, that's the term, right? And I've grown up, then sometimes I still have this deep feeling that something wrong with me. And often that's so unbearable. So what our brain does sometimes, not in all cases, is like I have my focus on my parents. I'm sorry. I have my focus on my parents, so I'm trying to fix them. Because the feeling is, if only once my dad would say, I'm proud of you, I'd feel different. If only once my mom would say, no, you're not responsible for that. You don't have to call your brother. I'm going to do that. It would be so great. Why can't she take responsibility of my siblings, let's say, if I'm a parentified child?
Right. Because that's what I actually needed as a child. And I still crave for that in my adulthood. And that
I still crave for that, right? And then it's like unbearable if I get it. And then I'm externally focused and I try and fix them or get it in places where I can't get it. And we found if I go back to my pain, if I relive it, and ideally in therapy, I'm validated by somebody in it. And it helps me gain access to my needs and to my deservingness and to my self-acceptance, all the things we've mentioned. Then I don't have the feeling of I'm responsible for the shit that I got anymore. So it's almost like I'm giving responsibility back to my parents, and I feel much freer of it. And that, of course, is going to help me so much in accepting a parent that does not change. Because I feel it's not me, it's her. Or it's not me, it's him.
So in this process of allowing myself to be with my pain and vulnerability, what could be a blockage is the way I blame myself for what actually happened, right? So this is another process I also have to go through. The way I talk to myself, because I felt as a child, it must be me. There must be something wrong with me, right?
Yes, yes.
So this is a process that is part of the journey to be aware of how do I actually treat myself in this process, right? And find compassion for that little child.
Yes.
It was not my fault.
Yeah, because it was not my fault, exactly.
Not my fault. There was nothing wrong with me. I didn't ask for this. I was a child, right? So finding that compassion as well helps me stop craving for that from my parents, right? Or for my partner or other people in my life.
Or other people. I mean, we have different ways of dealing with this later because we have this and we sort of have to find solutions.
Yeah.
So some of us, we will try and not even feel the neediness. That's also a solution. I feel like I need closeness and then I just don't want it. Or I just like, oh, I'm too needy because maybe I've really internalized the feeling I'm too much, I'm too needy. Or I've never had enough attention. I've never been important enough. And maybe my strategy to deal with it is to get it from everywhere. And now I get super angry if I'm not getting enough attention. And that's my way of dealing it. But either of those ways is not going to help me to really, to really heal and find happiness and get me what I really need.
Imke, what's the most important advice you give someone that wants to go through this journey?
If you want to go through this journey, I would give the advice, start now, start today with listening to what you feel and actually being with it. And when you feel like you get in touch with painful stuff and you feel it's a lot, get help. Don't hesitate to get help. Find a therapist that's appropriate and that you can trust and work through it. And don't wait another 5 years because it's not going to get better. Just
don't wait for them to change.
Exactly.
Right?
That's super important.
I think this is really, really important, right? It's finding this willingness to feel their own pain and stop waiting for finally a miracle is going to happen and your parents. I mean, what does happen is people get older. And I noticed that, a lot of my clients feel like, well, they have softened up or like, right? And then they find it even hard to image the old parent who was so critical or abusive or not there. But still, the wound is that old parent, right?
Yes.
That old parent. And so this is really, really beautiful, Imke. Thank you so much for taking your time. I think this was really beautifully explained how we need to go through our own pain in order to accept actually our parents for who they are. Thank you for taking this time.
Thank you, Ghazaleh. It was a pleasure.